Hello, my friend, and welcome to Sakuninsky, hosted by me, Johnny Seifert. This is the Celebrity Mental Health Podcast that I say it's okay to not be okay. And if you have the same mantra as me, whether you're watching or listening, click that subscribe button and leave a 5-star rating and review. And let's keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. Now, let me tell you about my guest today. My guest today has just signed up to host Radio 1 weekends until July 2024 before they go on their Straight Expectations tour through September around the UK, starting on the 4th of September in Newbury, then Norwich, Birmingham, Poole, Bristol, Sheffield, Hull, Liverpool, Salford, Brighton, Milton Keynes, Bedford, and finishing in London on the 22nd of September before going around on the Winter Pride route. So that's the touring side. That's the radio side. Then there's the podcast, and the podcast, The Gossip Gaze, continues to break stereotypes and stigmas and is doing absolutely incredible at the moment. So without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome to Skinniska. It's Danny Beard. Hello, Danny.
Hi, Gorge. How are you?
All the better for having a bit of time with you because you are one of the busiest men in show business.
I like to be busy. It means I don't get time to be too bored. But also, I'm kind of busy and not. I still get a few days off here and there in the week. I get to do things like this, and today I consider this really a bit. Well, it's not a day off. I've done things this morning, but I do bits like this on my days off that keeps me ticking over, and it means I don't have to do as much housework.
Well, that's really interesting because it's important to have days off for your mental health because otherwise you'd spiral out because you're so busy. But then also the fact that you've been in this industry for so long, trying and grafting, surely this is the bit that's like almost this is the day off bit because you get to talk about yourself and go, hold on a minute, look how much I've achieved. You know, the trolls might say something, or someone might say, I love that one show that I did last week on Radio 1. But actually, if you take a step back and go, oh my God, I have got a podcast which is successful, and I am going on tour, and I have got this, and I have got that. And you go, oh, you know, this is basically a day to celebrate you.
Yeah, it's like you say. I've worked so many years to get here, and I've done pubs and clubs for absolute, I mean, 10 years odd, with my drag act. And I've always dreamed of being a presenter. I've always dreamed of these things that I'm doing now. So it doesn't feel like work when you love it. So I understand how, kind of, for one of a better phrase, I'm blessed to be able to do that. So I don't know what I'd do without it. I really don't know what I'd do without this job, because I'm not really one for like getting up every day at the same time and doing the same thing day in and day out. So I know how lucky I am to have such a varied life, you know?
But is it easy or harder with the character that you play of Danny Beard, the drag act? Then you've got the
Mhm.
Danny, the private man. Then you've got this profile on your podcast where you can camp up a little bit. But then on Radio 1, you've got to kind of stick a bit more to the left because just the audience, naturally, if they're, 10, 11, 12 years old and they're coming in from CBBC, they might not understand completely the act. So do you have to really be conscious about the Danny Beard that we're presenting with each time that you do something different?
I'd like to be really professional and be like, yes, all the time. And I'm always switched on, but I'm not. I did Big Brother Late and Live a couple of weeks ago and
Oh,
dropped the
don't we
C
know
bomb.
about it? God.
But it was 11 o'clock at night and I didn't call anyone the C bomb. So it's okay. And
No, you just said it twice instead. Oh.
yeah, ITV commissioners were in and they were fine with it. You just kind of know. Do you know, like if you're in front of a relative that you shouldn't swear in front of, you just don't. I'm someone who naturally swears a lot in my language. I think it's a bit more interesting to someone who swears. It makes me feel like they're a bit more real. Or maybe it's just because I'm Scouse and my mum and dad were very colourful language people and still are. But I don't mind a bit of swearing. But no, I just switch it on and off, and like obviously touch wood. I've not said any naughty words on the radio because I'd like to to impress them and keep that job.
But what about the way you come across on Radio 1, for example? How does that differ from the Danny Beard that we do see in the podcast format? Because you are talking to a much younger audience and an audience
Yeah.
who are very mainstream and aren't necessarily gearing towards the LGBT community, if that's fair to say.
I think the main difference for me is that I always kind of plan what I'm going to say on the radio, even if it's just in the space when I've got a bit of music on, I might vibe to the music and then think, right, what's the next link? Okay, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. And by knowing exactly, even if I don't know the exact words I'm going to say, I know what the point I'm going to make is. It just means I know exactly where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm saying every time. The podcast, I just speak a bit more freely and I kind of leave it in because I like the Gossip Gaze to be as authentic as possible. So it's just about, I don't know, switching on and off really. You do something you just do subconsciously, you know, and you, like when you learn to drive a car, you stop thinking about it. When you I like to think of it like putting different hats on. When I put the drag hat on, I can do and say what I want. It's live. When I put the radio hat on, don't say the F word or the C word or swear. And I can still push it. I do push it a little bit on the radio. It's more challenging in a way because you can try and be cheeky and be a little bit naughty, but also whilst being PC. I think there's almost a bit more of a skill in that.
When Alex Hayden Jones, who runs Radio 1, saw you and obviously knows your career through Drag Race, through Britain's Got Talent, etc., he knew what he was buying as a product. And he wanted to
Oh yeah.
buy the Danny B, the same way that Jamie Lang came in and they bought Jamie Lang from Newlyweds and Heat Radio and Private Parts. They know what they're buying with both of you. But the way the BBC is and the way that the audience views the BBC, there's always this kind of backlash of, well, hold on a minute. What about people who came up through community radio and student radio? And there is a place for them. And what they're doing on Friday early breakfast is great that they're rotating that panel. And obviously at Christmas, they do the takeovers. How did you find that when you got given that show and you were told, right, you're doing 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this is going out to the press. What was the reaction like for you?
Do you know what? Mostly was great. Like most people didn't. I think people like Jamie, who've got more of a reality background, get maybe a little bit more of a backlash. I know he's done other bits of radio, but I think because I've done presenting for so long, I've got a podcast. I used to present on Gadio back in the day with Dean, who's on Radio 1 as well. I've also worked 10 years to this point. So it's not just like, forgive me, a Love Islander that's was a roofer and now is working in the entertainment industry. I've worked in the entertainment industry 10 years. So I didn't get much of a backlash to that. And while I think it's, like you say, really important that people who come up wanting to do that get that opportunity, my whole career has been building to be able to present. And that's why when I won Drag Race and we did the TV show, I didn't want to make a reality show. I wanted to make a TV show where I got to present it in and out of drag so I can show people, hey, this is what I can do. And, it's hopefully putting that out in the world, manifesting it, that kind of worked. So, because now I'm on Radio 1. So, I'll be honest, it's been mostly love. I feel like there's a lot of people that have come with me that maybe might not have listened to radio before, which I love. A lot of the listeners listen to radio religiously on the Friday and Saturday and have took me on board. I'm getting people texting in Mick the roofer and Paul the plumber, and I'm like, this isn't my audience normally. These aren't people that will come to my drag show. These aren't people that come to my theatre tour. These are people that are just listening to the radio and hopefully enjoying what I do, which is just be me, really. Just give them a bit of my personality, which, it's got me so far.
Well, I think there's an interesting way when we look at drag culture. I think Courtney Axe act on the 2018 Big Brother, The Year of the Woman, massively helped. Priscilla the Party, everybody's talking about Jamie and Kinky Boots, did massive numbers in the theatre. And I think there's probably more of an acceptance to drag culture than there was before. And obviously Drag Race has become a very mainstream show. So
Yeah.
the acceptance is definitely there. But it's interesting you bring up, Mick the Roofer, of breaking down those stereotypes. What do you think's changed, especially in radio, when it's all about painting pictures and it's all about the theatre of the mind, that drag culture is even more so accepted when it does come to the radio?
I think the thing about it is I'm not being a drag queen on the radio. I'm being Danny Beard, the presenter on the radio. And I think it works because Danny Beard, the drag queen, has worked 10 years putting my personality into a drag persona, which is an extreme version of who I am. I get to be a bit more quick-witted, a little bit more sharp-tongued, but those skills are transferable. So where I have to think on my feet, where I have, I'm hosting a competition or I'm hosting something and someone goes, go and fill 5 minutes, we're 5 minutes behind, and I just have to get up and speak to a live audience for 5 minutes and make them laugh and be a bit funny. Those are the skills that are transferable to radio, but I'm not necessarily being a drag queen on the radio, which I think kind of helps break down some of those barriers. And also it doesn't matter. What matters is this person enjoyable to listen to? Is this person making me either laugh or feel some kind of way? And is this person playing great music? And hopefully I'm doing that. But I think some people have had a backlash. There's been a couple of tweets. I think it's national radio, so you're going to get people that just judge you on, they see UK Drag Race winner Danny Beard takes over Radio 1 and they tweet, what is this woke? It's being forced down our throats. It's disgusting. And I'm like, listen. And if you don't like me because my voice is annoying, or you don't like me because I'm a rubbish presenter, then fine, you've got a valid point not to like me. I don't like everyone. Fine. Don't at me. It's not my brother. I'm being paid. Leave me alone. But do you know what I mean? Like, it's fine. I don't expect everyone to like me, but it's when people come at it with things like that. Oh, this is woke, and just think I've been given the job because I'm a random drag queen that's been on telly, and that's not the case. That's up to them if they want to believe that or think that. Like, good for you.
But the magic of radio, and when you want to be in that industry and then you're hosting a show, is that everyone that works in radio loves radio. What annoys me is people who work in radio who don't listen to radio and can't name their favorite radio presenters, and they don't want to know everything. You know, you should be reading Radio Today every day. You should be reading every single thread on the Digital Survive Forum. You should be listening to every radio station, every podcast, know everything. For you, who were you looking at when you were growing up going, that's who I want to base my act on? That's who I'm really liking. And I'm not talking about the drag culture, just in radio in general. What radio presenters were inspiring you at the time?
I was a Grimmy person. I used to love listening to Nick Grimshaw. And I think when Nick had the transition into telly and was like an X Factor judge, that I found inspiring because I always wanted to present. And when it come to drag, I always looked up to people like Lily Savage because I grew up in Birkenhead. She was from Birkenhead. Again, she'd cracked it on television, which was always my dream. But then I also looked at people that were like working on the scene, like Myra Dubois. She's a drag act that still works now on the cabaret scene. She has a really successful Edinburgh Fringe run every year. I used to love going and seeing her show. And when I got to host bits and see her in work, in live, watching her work, I found it really inspiring. So there's lots of places that I draw inspiration from, and lots of people that have gone before me that makes what I do doable.
Well, Lily Savage, the fact that she was from Liverpool, the fact of what she would be doing on Blankety Blank and then on her own show, and then what Paul O'Grady was as a private person, but also as a television presenter away from the act. I think that's a great person to model yourself on because we know how successful even the Paul O'Grady show was without Lily
Yeah.
Savage. And sometimes, as a drag artist, and I hope this is okay to say, sometimes you have to hide behind the persona because otherwise you don't necessarily have that confidence to just be the Danny Beard without the act.
100%. And I don't think if I would have ever gone through being Danny Beard, the drag queen, I would be able to be Danny Beard, the presenter. The first day on set when I filmed the aftershave for BBC Three and I was presenting out of drag, I was a bag of nerves. And I watch it back and I think, oh God, this is cringy. This is awful. But I think the confidence that drag gave me was to just throw myself into it and do it. And I'd never presented a TV show before. I'd never presented on auto cue before. I'd never done a lot of things, and I did it on national telly. So I think if I can do that and throw myself into things the first time round and learn from it and get better in front of an audience, then I can do anything. You know, there's people that work on telly that have had training for years before they go into it, and I just have that delusion that most make great drag queens is delusion, and I have that, and just think I can do that. And like someone I used to work with years ago, who I'm still friends with now, he's called Gordon, and he always says to me, "The one thing I love about you is you see something and go, I could do that, I could do that." And I don't know. I think that confidence, like you say, does come from drag, and drag is a mask. So for a lot of people, they can hide behind it and become a superhero or become whatever they want to be. But I find it really interesting to have both and both running at the same time. And there isn't a lot of drag acts that are doing that right now.
Well,
So I feel lucky.
you need to be able to do that because I can teach you how to read an auto cue. You know, I can teach you how to start a link and end a link, but your personality you can only control. Only you can
Yeah.
control those emotions. So what I want to do with you, Danny, is go all the way back to the beginning to little
Yeah,
Danny
let's go.
in Liverpool. So let's go back to Danny in school. Talk to me about your school days. Who were you in school? How did you fit into your year group at school? And then, you know, we'll do your coming out journey in a second, but basically, you know, what was your personality like and what were you holding back and putting forward?
Well, I think what's interesting for me and the way I see it is I had almost two lives growing up. So there was the move to the Wirral. So I'm originally from Liverpool, from a place called Halewood. And I grew up there. And through my childhood, I was quite publicly shy, in private, a show off. So if my mum had friends over, Christmas time, I would make all the adults stop what they were doing and watch me in a dressing gown with a pillow up my top perform Santa Got Stuck Up the Chimney. But then when I went to school, I would be quite shy and quiet, and people would say, "Oh, you sound like a girl. Are you gay?" People used to call me gay before I even knew what gay was. And I was bullied quite a bit. And then the bullying got worse. I was in year 7, first year of secondary school, and that was the worst year. That was hell. And my mum didn't want me to go in Halewood to the local comp because she thought I would get eaten alive. So instead, I went to St. Edmund Arrowsmith, which was a school far away from where I lived, like about an hour, 45 minutes. And it was hell. I got bullied just as much there as I think I would anywhere. But it kind of did make me stronger. We ended up moving to the Wirral after a really bad incident where like a guy put pins on his hands, cut my face open. I was scared to leave the house. Honestly, I've got my mum and dad to thank for everything because they sold the house and everything. We moved to the Wirral, and my mum said it's a fresh start. This is your new school. Be whoever you want to be. Do what you want to do. And that's when I went into year 8. I can never remember how old you are in these. I always remember it in school years. I don't know if you're the same.
I still
Um,
call people the year below. They're the year below me. I
yeah,
left school 15 years ago.
yeah,
They're the year below me. The year above me. I can't talk to her.
I
She's the year
do.
above me. What do you mean she's the year above you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm 31 and I'm like, yeah, she was 2 years below. I went to the new school and that's when I started drama. That's when I did media studies and I did all the things I wanted to do. And I remember in year 8 coming out because someone was like, "Are you gay?" And it just triggered me. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm what?" And I just owned it. I remember feeling that feeling of owning it. And I think by lunchtime, I was the most popular kid in the school. I went from being almost the bottom of the food chain, if you will, in my first school to being, well, all the girls wanted to be my friend. And all the boys were like, well, leave Danny alone. At least he admits it. And it just, something just switched. And I think the culture in that school was a lot nicer. The kids were in generally a lot nicer. And I was a lot more confident that this fresh start was what I needed. And I just fell into all drama, all the things I wanted. That's when I started being interested in telly and television. I'm a massive television nerd. I'll pick up a continuity mistake like that. I wanted to be an actor originally or a performer and presenter. And I auditioned for drama school at the end of sixth form and I didn't get in. And I was offered various different acting schools, offered me a foundation degree, but it was like 9,000 to £13,000 a year, some schools, and my mum and dad couldn't afford it. And I knew it broke the heart to tell me it couldn't afford it, but I also knew it was a cheeky ask, you know, because you couldn't get funding for it because it was a foundation degree, or you could only get up to 2 grand or something like that at that time. And then my mum and dad had to pay the rest. I think that's how it worked. And I ended up going to Liverpool Community College and studying HNC in acting. And it was through that year that I discovered all things like they call it contemporary theatre. So it's like being a performative version of yourself on stage, which kind of tied in the acting, the presenting, all of that. And that's when I started being interested in drag as well. And through that year, I thought, actually, I don't want to be in drama school. Drama school breaks you down and teaches you how to be somebody else. I want to be able to be me on stage. And that's when I started playing around with drag. Ended up going to Salford Uni in Manchester, just outside of Manchester. Salfordians will hate me for saying it. And I've lived in Manchester ever since. So I went to uni. I did contemporary theatre practice at Salford Uni. That's where the drag started. I've moved out of home. I was in Manchester and I got a job in bars and very quickly started DJing. Then I noticed one of the other DJs who was a drag queen. Their wage slip was on the side. And I think at the time I got like 50 quid for the night DJing and they had like 180. And I was like, why are they getting 180? I mean, the cheek of me, I'd done the job about 3 weeks. And I remember the manager, little cute lesbian she was, goes, well, she does drag. You don't. And I went, well, if I come in drag next week, you're going to pay me 180. And I think she thought I wouldn't. And I went, yeah, all right. And I turned up in drag and she had to pay me 180 quid. And that is genuinely how the drag started because I just wanted to get more money for my DJing shifts. And very quickly I was DJing in drag and I didn't even have a name. I was going out. I remember I went to Cheddar Gorgeous's club night, who was on my season of Drag Race. And they were all like, what's your name? And I was like, I don't know. And I used to have a glitter beard. So they all just were calling me Danny with the beard, Danny with the beard. And then It was just Danny Beard. And I loved the nightlife scene. All of a sudden, all those things from childhood where I wasn't popular, then I was popular, it kind of echoed all of that. And you become a mini celebrity on the gay scene. People want a picture with you, people are interested in you. And in hindsight, maybe there's a certain fakeness to it, but also it kind of made sense. And then through drag, I entered a competition, a national competition called Drag Idol, which meant I won my own show. So I went from DJing to performing. And weirdly, drag has brought me, made my own way of doing everything I wanted to do. Through drag, I've been able to present. Through drag, I've been able to act. I've done pantos. I was in Hollyoaks as myself, which is very weird thing to do. I got to do all these things that I always wanted to do. So I'll always love drag and have an affinity to drag, but I also love that now I'm in a really nice position that I've almost got two products to sell. I've got drag me and non-drag me. So that's a very quick fly on the wall from childhood to modern day, and I hope it wasn't too boring or too long.
Oh, I absolutely loved it, Danny, because it's really interesting when you think about drag culture. The question is, why are you a drag artist and not a transvestite, or why did you not change your gender? Because
Yeah,
the one would think you're wanting to be a female all the time. Why not do it? And it's interesting the way that you came across it and lived it. Is it's a business, it's show business, and we all know it.
always been
And
that to me.
my mum's really funny because I take her to a lot of the red carpets and we go in, we deal with events, and she'll go, "Oh, look at the way they hug. They hug really fakely." And I said, "Do you think I hug really fakely?" She said, "Yeah, you do sometimes." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You always go, 'You all right, darling?'" And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's just the way this business is. That's the way we all communicate."
Yeah.
When it comes to you and going back to the beginning of, you said you came out when you were quite young, and there's a lot of conversations at the moment in the news about, when people should transition, when people should come out. And obviously, it's getting earlier and earlier that Hollyoaks have got a storyline right now at the moment. Where, for you, do you think the conversation should be? Is it better to come out earlier when you know you accept yourself? Or is it kind of almost pressuring yourself to go, no, it might change, it might change?
I think I think first of all, just to pick up on something you said, I think drag is very, very different to being trans. I think trans is an identity, and just like when I was young and I knew I was gay, most of my trans friends, most, not all, knew when they were young. So it's about supporting people when they need support. And I think it's about showing people love when they need love, regardless of its sexuality or gender. For me, I am a gay man. I've never wanted to transition. That's not my whole drag, isn't even really emulating a woman. Like I
Mm.
have a white face. It's very clown based. That's got roots in club kid culture, which is when I was in uni, like I mentioned before, I got really obsessed with Lee Bowery and Boy George and those club kids of the 80s. And that's where the inspiration for the face comes from. So drag can be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be dressed as a woman or being a woman. But for those that are on a trans journey, I think it's about supporting them and showing them love. I think trans people make up 1% of our population, but it seems to be 80% of loss of people's conversations in the media and politicians right now. And I think realistically, trans people are going through what gay people went through in the 80s, which is a lot of hate, a lot of unfounded hate. And I think, it's not really for me to answer when we should help or give affirmative care to people because it's not my story. But I am part of a community of people who trans people make up. So, like I say, I think it's about showing them love and about showing them that they can be whoever they want to be. And I think each person should be a case by case basis. Some people know at 15 or 10 and know, and I've said since they were 5 and 6, no, mummy, I'm a girl. No, mummy, I'm a girl. And I think in those circumstances, showing that person love, showing that person that they can be and dress how they want to be, that makes them feel the true, authentic self, is less harmful than than suppressing it. Considering that trans people make up 1% of our population, the suicide rate for our trans brothers and sisters is incredibly high. And I think that's because of how they're demonized, how they are spoken about as if they're not part of the conversation. You see a debate on TV about trans people. How often is there a trans person involved? We wouldn't do that with racism. We wouldn't have 5 white people on a panel discussing racism. So I think it's important for people to get to know trans people. And that's why it's important for Hollyoaks to have stories like they've got on, and Married at First Sight to have people like Ella Morgan who represent trans people. And only when you start to know trans people and speak to them and hear their story, you put in a face to the otherwise sensationalist headlines, and you might start to understand it. Like your little old granny now who loves gay people because she sees Graham Norton on the telly all the time. It's important. So representation's important, and I'm in no way a spokesperson for trans people, but I'm certainly an ally, and I'm certainly somebody that open arms loves trans people and wants them to be able to live a happy and hassle-free existence.
It's interesting for those who are older in their 50s that they need to be having those conversations and listening. And you're completely right. It's supporting and listening. And that's why I'm so grateful that you came on here today to just open up that conversation and educate, because I'm going to ask you questions that I don't have a clue about, but I need someone who's actually going to tell me the answer in a way that I can actually understand it and educate. And I can't thank you enough for doing that for me.
No problem. And like I say, it's these conversations should be had with dignity to the people that we're speaking about, whether it's on racism or transphobia or homophobia or any subject that is about a community of people. I think it's important that that community of people have a voice and are heard, because every trans person I know just wants to live a hassle-free existence and be able to navigate life the same as we all do with other issues that go on. You know, it's for me, it's sad to see friends hurt and friends lost, you know?
Well, Ella has been a guest on Secured Insecure last October, so do go and check out that episode and hear her journey and what she went through, and so she will educate you. And if you are affected by what you're hearing, the Samaritans are a great organisation if you need someone to talk to. 116 123 samaritans.org.uk is their website. Final question, Danny. Let's look back at where you are now, 31 years old. You're 5 months older than me. You just beat me.
I look a lot younger, though, for the people that can
Yeah,
only
thank
hear
you.
this.
Thank you, Danny. You didn't need to say that. And also, I was that kid listening to Chris Moyles every day at 6:30 going, I want to be on Radio 1. And I still wake up 20 years later listening to him every morning going, I want to do what you're doing. So yes, you have done everything that I haven't done. Thank you for pointing that out.
Oh,
Well, what would you tell your younger self, looking at the mental health things that you've gone through, looking at where you are now, looking at the success you've had as a podcaster, a TV presenter, a radio presenter, going on your big tour, which we'll talk about in a second. How do you look back at that younger version of yourself who wanted to have all of these things happen to him?
I think I just would say believe in yourself and don't stop working. I don't stop working. I'm always thinking of the next thing. I procrastinate like everyone, but I think ultimately, you know, I still want bigger and I still want more. And I still, whenever you start achieving things, I don't know if you're the same. Naturally, I'm one of them people that looks to the next thing, to the next thing.
Yeah,
And I think
always.
if I could tell 10-year-old me that 31-year-old me would be doing everything I'm doing, I would be mind blown. I would think, oh my God, you've made it. But 31-year-old me sits here and goes, well, I've still not made it.
Mm.
I know all the TV shows that I've been up for that I've not got. I know all the jobs that I've been up for and not got. I know all the knockbacks. The public see the side of me that gets things and wins Drag Race and is on Radio 1 and blah, blah, blah. The public sees all the good things, which is great. But life isn't like that. Life's still full of knockbacks. I still get no's. I'm still working hard to try and be where I want to be. It's a journey and you've got to enjoy the journey. And I've really enjoyed the journey. It's been hard. There's been times I've wanted to give up. There's been so many of those moments. I remember after lockdown, I thought I'd never be able to get back on stage again. So I would just tell myself, keep on working hard on it. Keep on working, because it is paying off. You know, I've got an amazing relationship I'm in. I love where I live. I love my friends. And really, that's what life's about. It's about being able to enjoy those moments and a great work-life balance. For years, I just worked and didn't go on holiday. So I was scared to book a holiday because I would think, well, what if a great gig comes in? Now I'm like, no, I'm going to book that holiday. I'm going to do these things. So just keep working hard and just be you, because ultimately being me is what's got me here. Not everyone's going to like you, but that's okay because you don't like everyone.
Well, it's funny you said that. My travel agent, Emma Diamond, who listens to this podcast, currently has got about 10 bookings ready for me. And I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know what my summer plan is yet, 'cause there's too many festivals. And I don't know what ones we're broadcasting from or not. So, Emma Diamond, as you can hear, yeah, at some point I will book a holiday. Last question, straight expectations. You're going on tour.
Yeah.
Tell me all about it. Why should people go and see you?
Because it's the best drag show that the country's got to offer at the minute until someone better comes along. It's a perfect night out. It's a good old-fashioned drag cabaret show for today. I've got an amazing five-piece band that have got an illustrious career behind them. My drummer, Sophie's drummed with Ariana Grande. There's people that have come out of massive musicals. My MD flies over from Australia to do it. The music side of it is incredible. And then it's all glued together with some good old-fashioned comedy. I read the audience. I'm nasty but nice. I'm mean but lovable. And it's a bit of a journey. People last year cried, they laughed, they stood up and danced. And I'm hoping that the same happens this year. So come and see me, especially in London's West End, because it's a really big theatre and I'm scared.
My thanks to Danny Beard for that interview. You can hear them on Radio 1 on Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays. Their podcast, The Gossip Gaze, is out to download now wherever you get your podcast from, like this one, Skinniska. And if you want to see them on their Straight Expectations tour, visit their Linktree page. Or go on Danny's Twitter page, and then all the links are on there, so you can go and follow them everywhere. And if you love radio, there are interviews on Secure Insecure in the library with people like Sarah Jane Crawford, Sherry Murphy and Sam Thompson from Hits Radio, Amy Vivian, Talia Storm and Sean Welby from Capital FM, and a couple of Radio 1 DJs, including Dick and Dom and Sarah Jane Crawford as well, because she did do radio on his past, or in the Secure and Insecure library, so do go and check them out. If you enjoyed today's episode, then whether you're listening or watching, click that subscribe button, leave a 5-star rating and a review, and let's keep spreading the word. It's okay to not be okay. On social media, on TikTok, at Johnny Seifert 92 is where I put clips out of all the episodes from Secure Insecure. On Instagram, at Secure Insecure Podcast, and at Johnny Seifert, so you can find me, and on X, at Johnny Seifert. So thank you so much for listening or watching. Until next time, I'm Johnny Seifert. Thank you, and goodbye.